thing in the day, then you realize like how your blood sugar is pretty stable throughout the day. You
Good
don't get these
point.
big swings up and down, and which create cravings and create all these other, hunger signals. So it's actually like if you do that first thing, you notice the whole rest of your day is set up.
What a
for
good
success.
point. They actually showed that in studies when people eat a high protein breakfast. And high protein would be like a good 30, 40, 50 grams of protein for breakfast. They're less likely to overeat throughout the entire day. Probably because of what you said, Justin.
You also highlighted this is a perfect example of where I would actually introduce a shake to somebody is somebody who says that exact same thing back to me. They know that their target protein they need to take every single day is 150 grams. That's what we've decided based off of their body weight or their body weight goal. Okay, we need to hit 150 a day. They're coming to me, Adam, I'm so full at the end of the day. It's 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah, now a shake.
And I'm only at 110 or 120 grams of protein, and I don't want to eat anymore. But should I just? And since I want to lose weight, shouldn't I just not eat? And I would say, no, not in this case. We're strength training to build muscle, to speed up the metabolism. You are missing your protein intake consistently. Here's a situation where I want you to get that protein shake in. So we definitely feed that muscle. And it is definitely not going to keep you from leaning out. It's going to go to building muscle. And that in turn is going to speed the metabolism up, which ultimately will help you lean out and get down to the 10%.
Awesome. And now with strength training, we'll go back to that, right? One of the fundamental rules of strength training is known as progressive overload, meaning if you, and this is very true, especially in the first few years of training, later on it gets more complicated, but in those first few years, your body continues to progress because you're progressively overloading it. You're doing more or lifting more than you were previously, so you continue to progress. In other words, when you strength train, it's a stress on the body, and the way that the body adapts to that stress is by becoming strong enough so that that stress is no longer stress. And then what do? You add more stress. That's the progressive overload. One of the best ways to do that, or to do that consistently, is to track your training volume. What does that formula look like? Well, it's sets times reps times weight that you lifted. So if you did 3 sets of 10 reps of bench press at 100 pounds, it would be 3 times 10 times 100. That's your volume for that exercise. And then slowly over time, while you're going from 30 to 10%, see if you can either keep that volume the same, so long as it's appropriate. If you're overtraining, back off. But if it's appropriate, keep it the same and or slowly inch it up when the time feels right. When you feel strong, you feel healthy, slowly inch it up. And that's how you progressively overload your body throughout this process.
I even used to give the advice of just maintain, or I used to say, hold the line and hit at least your volume every week, and then allow your body to tell you when it's ready for more. Meaning you're going to have these workouts, and everybody's experienced this before, where you feel good. You feel rested. You feel well fed. You do that first warm up set and you're like, wow, the bar is moving real easy. Like, here's the time where I'm going to go ahead and stretch my capacity a little bit, go ahead and add a little bit of volume, just a little bit more than what you were doing previously. And then again, we're going to go back to that, hold the line. Now we're going to stay there again until I have another one of those days where I'm feeling good. And then I'm going to add more. And you just do it incrementally like that over time. And you'd be so surprised on how much that starts to compound over weeks and
weeks. Now you combine that with high protein, and then you combine it with this next point, which is feed muscle gains. In other words, if your calories are too low, you'll suffer in the gym. Now, they need to be low for you to lose weight, but if they're too low, you're going to go to the gym, you're going to feel like garbage. So, in other words, one of your number one goals here with this is I need to also kind of get stronger. If I'm getting stronger and I'm sticking to whole natural foods and I'm hitting my protein, I'm on the right track. And what will probably happen, especially initially, is you'll get leaner while building a little bit of muscle. The scale might not even move that much initially. But what's happening is you're boosting your metabolism. Over time, your metabolism starts to speed up. Now your calories that you're currently eating become more of a deficit and more fat starts to come off your body. Eventually you get to the point where you start to track and cut your calories. Now, why am I saying that? When you go from 30 to 18, 16, 17% body fat, it's pretty consistent. It's not nearly as hard as going from 16 to 10. When you get down to 10, when you start to get down to the 10, where you want to see your abs, you want to see that six-pack, now you need to get a little bit more granular. Now you need to start tracking and then cut from there. But most people, in my experience, could get into the high to mid-teens just by living kind of a healthy lifestyle with some of those steps.
That's been my experience coaching people, is simply by following all the other strategies, we never really had to aggressively cut until you try to get down to like single digits.
Right.
When you start getting down to single digits, and by the way, too, you didn't hear us mention anything about cardio.
No
cardio. You don't even need to do that to get down to that 10%. You can go from 30 all the way down to 10. And in fact, I'm advising my clients to not do cardio, especially until we get to that point. And we want to get down to single digits, 9, 8, 7, 6, getting really, really low body fat percentage. Then maybe we start talking about cutting for longer periods of time. We start talking about doing things where we're getting on cardio. Because you know why? Because now we're entering into a unhealthy place to be. And I don't want you to be there for very long. But if you're trying to get there just to prove a point, I can get down to 6 or 7% body fat. Then it makes sense to introduce some of these extreme things. But the average person who's going from 30% to body fat down to seeing their abs can absolutely do that through all the tips that we talked about and never touch a piece of cardio equipment.
I want to clarify, right? This doesn't mean don't be active every day. You want to be healthy and you want to be active every day. I like tracking steps. I like making sure you're getting, a nice 10,000, 12,000 steps a day, which is a lot more than most people will get. So make sure you're moving throughout the day. But what Adam's talking about is structured cardio workouts. Now, why are we saying, I'd rather you not do it? Well, number one, cardio doesn't build muscle. Yes, it does burn calories, but your body adapts to that very quickly. But ultimately, it's like, look, if you're going to spend time in the gym, you're much better off spending it strength training. And most people are not going to work out consistently from the journey of 30 to 10, more than 3 days a week on average. Yeah. So I would rather you spend that strength training, not doing 45 minutes or an hour.
The focus has to be on muscle, preserving it at all costs. And I think that's the biggest misconception with, trying to lower your body fat in general. It's like, to do that, we need to replace it or preserve the muscle mass that you have. And so it's every step that you take has to be towards what it takes to build muscle. And that's like the focus of it. And we just, manipulate the nutrition so it provides just enough for the preservation, but also now to cut down so we can start carving into that excess energy store.
Well, and to piggyback off the steps, one of our favorite ways, I've heard us all communicate this before, is to add steps post-meal.
Yeah.
So one of the because just walking 10 to 20 minutes post-meal is a great way. One, you're pairing it with another behavior, right? All the research supports that if you want something to be consistent, one of the fastest, best ways to do that is to pair it with already another habit. You have to eat every single day. Everyone's already made a habit around breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So easy. Now I'm going to start to, set a goal of I'm going to walk for 10 minutes and start small. If you've never done it before and you can't commit to 20 minutes of a walk after a meal and that's not feasible for you, start with 5. Then go to 10, then go to 20. But that's what I would like to get up to, is where you're doing for a 15 to 20 minute walk afterwards. Not only are you getting the benefits of the activity, the movement, the blood flow, the digestion, you're going with that, you're burning more calories. You're not sending a loud signal that's catabolic like doing cardio. You're just creating more movement that's overall healthy for you. And it's something that's sustainable, so that once you do get down to this 10%, it's a habit that's not hard for you to keep going, which is always important. When I'm communicating a goal like this to somebody, it's like, yes, I know you want to go from 30 down to 10% body fat and see your abs, but I bet you want to continue to keep that and see that, right? You don't want to just get there and then go all the way right back to 30%. So my goal is to keep in mind that whatever we build into this routine, everything from eating, habits around exercise and movement, it needs to be something that you can sustain for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you're just going to push your body so hard and you're going to discipline yourself to do all these things. You're going to get there and you have a habit for a moment in time, and then you go right back to that old way.
100%.